Hiya, it's Xavier and welcome to my bonsai retreat. Now I'm sure you remember way back in April this little monster featured, but it was a bit bigger than this. In fact, if I remember rightly, it was 3 feet tall and it had been bought from a nursery, and it formed the first of a series on creating bonsai from nursery stock. Because do you know what? I don't know about you, but I find bonsai just a wee bit expensive, so if I can get my stuff cheaper for sort of 4 or 5 quid down a nursery, then do you know what, for a few years work and the satisfaction you get from it, even look at it now. This is how you create great bonsai, and this is what makes this hobby such fun. So if you want to see how I'm going to take this to the next stage of development before it goes to sleep for winter, you need to keep watching. And along the way we're going to have a few top tips that I think you won't want to miss. The species Kojo Nai Mai Fuji Cherry. But you know what? I asked myself, why is this called a Fuji Cherry? And I'm sure out there in the real world you will know the answer to that, but you know what I'm like. I had no idea. And straight into Google, because that's where we all go. And in fact, this ornamental shrub, which I think it grows up to about 2.5 meters, that sort of height, small tree, is found in abundance on the slopes of Mount Fuji. Now what I love most about this is it's the first of the flowering tree shrub bonsai to burst forth, and I think this year actually it burst forth in that white flower with little hues of pink in mid to late February, it might even be early March. So before we get into this, I do want to ask you one thing. What do you think was the biggest takeaway from part 1 of this series? I found this for £10. Great big Fuji cherry. It's got some flowers on it, and I want to turn it into a bonsai. And the truth is, you have to look at your materials sometimes and go, what did I buy it for? And I bought this for what's going on down there. Now, I don't know, it could be two trees. Now for those of you who are nervous, then by all means you can sort through the root structure yourself. That's the structure. I'm absolutely not bothered about the front at all right now. I'm going to fill that up with soil. Great big thick thing. If we want to be styling taper, we want to get rid of that. So let's make that decision now. But I tell you what, let's put you out of your misery. Do you know what the biggest takeaway from that one was? I forgot. Would you believe that? The biggest takeaway, and it's the biggest failing I find, certainly for me, learning this as a hobby, and even now, is when you get that initial nursery stock or the initial Yamadori you've pulled out and it's 3-4 foot high and you're a bit tentative, you know, you see branches higher up and you think, oh, they'll look good. No. If you want to get a great bonsai, you need to go hard early and define that primary structure. And I think if you remember, when I looked at this, all I saw was this trunk and this trunk. The rest of this, really not bothered. Primary structure, get the trunk line first. And that, I think, is the biggest takeaway from part 1. There's not a lot of work to do. I'm just going to be removing the leaves. Most of these leaves will come away anyway. Just so I can clearly see what I've got as potential new secondary branches. And as you see, they've got this very defined zigzag style of growing, but they bud so profusely that you get so many opportunities. If you look just here, we've all seen the Fuji cherry, but there's got to be 10, 11, 12 buds all around this point. So we've got all the leaves off. We'll also look under the bark there. What we don't want is the bark's coming away. We don't want nesting bugs under there. And this would also be one that I would give a winter wash. My tree is at the top. Do I want this one here? Bearing in mind the front's going to be here, that's coming straight towards me. Straightforward answer, no. I will remove that. Equally, we've got this stub here now. I'm taking quite big chunks out of this. Because what I want it to do is when it rolls over, it will roll into a concave hollow, so to speak. And when we do any of these wounds, we still want to just clean the edges
And the whole idea there is just to aid the process of the healing callus, rather than having a ragged edge. Nice and smooth. Cut paste be nicely applied to that, and that should keep it, one, clear of any yucky diseases, but also aid healing. Now the nice thing about the Fuji Cherry is it's cold hardy down to -20, which, bearing in mind that Grantham only gets -6 at its worst, I think that's pretty good. Now, I'm the first to admit that sometimes the biggest issue, well, there's loads of issues when it comes to my bonsai, is knowing where to cut back, what is going to be my secondary branches. And I always find the first thing I always do is remove anything that could be a flaw. So immediately we're looking anywhere where there's 3 or more coming from one junction. Then I'll start looking at things that look irregular, like long straight sections or long sections where there's no taper. But first of all, I'm going to remove anywhere where there's more than 2 at a junction. Now looking here, we have an obvious issue here. We've got this potentially being the secondary branch which I kept, but beneath it we've got 2 smaller ones which are very healthy, that I need to decide, am I getting rid of these 2 and getting rid of that? Now looking at the thickness of this one, I do need my next secondary branch or the next one that's coming off to be of a reasonable, proportionally sized branch, and this one is. What I don't like about this one is actually coming back in towards the design. This one definitely has to go, so we would get rid of that one. I could see an argument for keeping this one and getting rid of this big one. In fact, let's do it in increments. Here we've got quite a big dead. Okay, so that just leaves us with this coming in, and there's nothing else off there. Now Fuji Cherry do bud profusely, so we may get something that goes, ideally we want something that goes that way or up. Do you know what? I don't like it, so I'm going to get rid of it. If you can see, this one also is relatively adjacent and in line with the 2 that are coming here from behind. In fact, we know we won't want that one. What I am going to do is wire this one outwards a bit, because I've got some nice bud here that I like, so that'll get wired. And I've looked at the arrangement here. Obviously I want to keep this thicker one. I've got one at the back here which I like, and this back one I like, but there's this one here I definitely don't like, so that's going. I'm looking at where I want buds to push from next spring, and I want those buds to be a lot closer in. So for now I'm just going to cut these back. These ones at the back here, 2 above there, 2 above each, one of them's got to go. And sometimes there's personal preference. There'll be people now who say, no, you should have taken the other one. Trees don't follow bonsai rules. It's funny that. So I'm going to do the same now with the rest of this and come back to you. I took off quite a thick one, and you know, my intention would be to keep this one here because this is a good size secondary structure, and I originally thought that was going to be the case. But this one, it should be good, but I haven't got any buds on there, and all I have got is these ones and this one. They're all pointing in towards the front of the tree. So when you look at it from this aspect, these branches are coming towards me. I can't wire it, and maybe let's build secondary branches and say this one is just not good enough as an experiment. So I will cut that there. Let's see if it back buds along there. Here, this one comes from pretty well the same point. It crosses this one here. I'm going to remove that. So I've wired these. Okay, so we're pushing this further out, allowing this to come up. I want to create a little bit of separation from this one here. That's a great big internode there, so we don't want that anyway. Let's just see how they develop. We've got points here, they're buds. There's bud points at the back there and there. So we've got this one here and this one here. The problem we have with this one is it's actually, if you look from the front, if the front of the tree is going to be here, it's actually absolutely smack bang coming from the front of this back branch. So even if I bend it across or that way, they're still going to create what we, it's not desired. But there's a little bud there. So I'm going to have a little punt at these two buds right at the base. And if we get a bud from there coming out that way, that's ideal. I'm leaving this for now, but that could be the replacement. Alright, so I did use a bit more wire than I thought I was going to, and you know, honestly, this is a clip and grow plant, it really is. But I'm setting now my initial secondary structure. This is going to be the big branches that is going to lead out and then allow me to get the tertiary structure from. So I want to get them in the right place, and this is about building a bonsai, so let's do it that way. Secondary structure, it needs to be comparable to the primary. So I'm certainly not going to be able to get it this thick or even half this thickness, but I am probably going to want to let these run. And the chances are I will let these run a foot and a half to try and get a lot more thickness into those. Why have I wired it now? I could wire it in the spring. Main reason is I know that we've still got quite a bit of growth for roots and development, and we're going to get some thickening. So I think we'll be able to set the structure ready for the wire to come off in the spring. Could I have done this pruning in the spring? And the answer is yes, and traditionally I've done this in the spring. Just as they start to swell up, I do that. But I've found now, certainly with the volume of trees that I have, that when I'm building structure on a new tree, I'll often do a lot of the work in this post-leaf fall period, when I know I can also wire with less risk of the wire biting. Because this is a very, very cold hardy tree, I'm also less worried about potential effects of wire, which, let's be honest, is negligible in this climate. So that's the tree set up for the next stage. I'll feed it up heavily in the spring, and I will probably let it go. I really want that secondary structure to really build and probably double in thickness, and the only way that can happen is if you let it grow. Now there is another very good reason for doing this in the spring, and that's for these. I've found with the Fuji Cherry, you want to get the best opportunity for your cuttings to take. I've just had so much success with the I suppose they're the first year hardwood cuttings, these ones. But cut them in spring, and I would cut it right at the base there, like that. Plant that straight into a pot, no grip, doesn't really matter what the soil is, and leave it in a corner of the garden. I've had so much success with Fuji Cherry that way, and I know in other videos I've shown that to you. And that would probably be the only reason, because I don't advocate trying to get your cuttings now, although what I am going to do, as I've done with my trident, I'm going to take those two as cuttings, I'm going to put them in a pot, and I'm going to leave them indoors with my indoor trees with wet feed, so they'll be sitting in a tray of water. See what happens. Maybe, just maybe, we'll get some decent cuttings from these. So, from Xavier, with his nursery to bonsai project well underway, end of year one, I look forward to be able to show you how it's looking next year. Now, I've done lots of pruning now. The other downside of that is I'm unlikely to get many flowers, because a lot of the initial buds, mind you, a lot of the initial buds are flowers. So we'll see, shall we? We'll just see how many flowers I get. So you'll see this again, hopefully, when it's flowering. But hope you've got something out of this. I know I have. I learn every time I do this. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. If you like this, bang, hit like. If you really, really want to share this with other people who you think would love Fuji Cherry, then share it, especially on social media, because you know I don't have friends, so I don't have social media. And subscribe, and if you want to know what I'm going to got planned or little things that are going to come up, that always goes up in the community post. So you need your notifications if you want to see that. So that's the old ding ding, the bell. I sound like I'm talking to a 2-year-old, don't I? I apologise if any of you are going, please, please don't talk to me like that. But yeah, so thanks very much. Happy bonsai and God bless. Cheers.